So, looking like fairly agreeable weather if you want to head outside. And one of the places you can go, they've been around for 25 years, is Oak Hammock Marsh. And from Oak Hammock Marsh in the studio this morning is Jacques Bourgeois. Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Oak Hammock Marsh, 25 years. What? Tell us a little bit about the people that may not be familiar with what it is, where it is. Tell us a bit about Oak Hammock Marsh. And you've been there for 21
years. Yeah. Well, the marsh is a really interesting story that predates me, actually. If you were to go back in time a couple hundred years ago, the marsh would have stretched from Winnipeg all the way to Lake Winnipeg. It was roughly 470 square kilometers, a huge wetland. And as the settlers came, they started draining this land because underneath was rich, fertile soil. So the marsh went from almost 500 square kilometers to not even 1 square kilometer by the 1960s. So a big loss of wetland, big loss of birds, waterfowl, frogs, you name it. Everything was declining. So the province decided to reclaim some wetlands and rebuild Oak Hammock Marsh. So not quite to its former glory of 500 square kilometers, but now it's 36 square kilometers. So large enough that if you stand on a rooftop, you look all around, this is all part of the marsh. It's huge. Lots of birds have come back. I'm not sure if you're a birder yourself, but we have about 300 species of birds that will come and use the marsh at some time during the year. Now that's roughly 3/4 of all the species we have in the whole country. So it shows you how wetlands are important for birds. And of course, there's no better way to showcase what a wetland is than by having an interpretive center to make people discover what those benefits are. For example, it prevents flooding, it cleans the water naturally. As a matter of fact, city of Winnipeg used to get its water from Oak Hammock Marsh at the turn of the century. There was a street called Pipeline Road in the north end of the city connected to Oak Hammock Marsh. So lots of little known fact about the importance of this wetland, and we're hoping people will come and discover more about it.
So give me an example of some of the birds that'll be out there.
Right now,
the ones that are the biggest in numbers.
Right now, it's all about waterfowl. Lots of ducks, duck and geese. We do a waterfowl count. The last count we did was about 31,000 Canada geese, about 5,000 ducks and 2,000 snow geese. But I'm sure the numbers are way up, much higher than that since then.
So there'll be a lot of them are heading south soon, right?
A lot of them are heading south. They're getting a cue from the weather. It says, you know what, it's kind of cold here. Let's go south. It's actually lack of food. They'll be going south because they can't find the food they need. Everything is going to be freezing over soon, so they'll go south to find their food.
So it's not just the weather that'll push them that way. It's the fact everybody needs to eat.
Yeah, they're food migrant, exactly.
They're food migrants. So when it's obviously not the same day every year, or is it the same day every year when they? As
a matter of fact, this year is much earlier than the past years.
Yeah, it's been a rough fall, hasn't it?
It seems like someone just flicked a switch. It was summer, then boom, it came to winter almost. But the birds also came back quite early this year. They came back in mid-February, which is the earliest they ever came back. So I guess they were done nesting, they were done raising their young, so they're just ready to go. So yeah.
So people who love birds can go out there and check it out. What sort of activities do you have out there that they may be interested in?
Well, if there's lots of bird lovers, basically we have a program called A Bird in the Hand, where people get to have a really close contact with a wild bird. We set up some nets, some mist nets that birds don't see. They fly into it, they get caught, and it's like a little hammock. They just wait for us to go back and retrieve them. And then we bring them back to a banding station. We put the leg band on the leg of the bird. Then we give the bird to the people, and they get to release the bird. So they get to hold a tiny little wild bird for a few minutes or a few seconds before it goes back into the wild. So it's actually really cool, close contact with nature. And that's what we're all about. We're all about doing things, not just watching, but actually being part of it, because we're all part of the environment ourselves. One thing I like to do is I like to measure people's wingspan and see what kind of bird matches their arms. For example, I have the same wingspan as a swan, and you probably has the same wingspan as a blue heron. So it's stuff like that will stick with people. Like this, like owls are this big and so on. So it's kind of fun to make people realize that.
That's kind of neat, yeah.
Also, instead of just walking the trails, we developed a new program called the Wader Walk. So we actually go into the marsh and explore the marsh firsthand. Like we walk through the cattails, and we'll even sample and eat some cattails. There's some plants that are edible in there. Super good. Cattails kind of taste between the mixture between watermelon and celery, cucumber a little bit.
Wow.
So it's exactly, that's the wow factor. People don't realize that. I like that kind of stuff.
So how deep is the marsh?
On average, it's about 1 meter. So we don't walk. No,
that's amazing.
You don't need that much depth, because what you need is lots of water and lots of plants. So if the water is too deep, then there's not enough sunlight for the plants to grow. So to be a wetland, it has to be less than 2 meters, and Oak Hammock Marsh on average is about 1 meter.
Okay. I'm in conversation with Jacques Bourgeois from Oak Hammock Marsh. We're talking about the marsh itself and some of the events they have happening. I guess I was just checking the website, and there's a couple big events happening. On October 18th, just a few days from now, something called Astronomy Night, which is all part of the migration. Tell us about that one.
Well, what a better place to look at the stars than the marsh. We're far enough from the city that we don't have much light pollution, and we're close enough that it's not, you don't have to drive 3 hours to get to it. I used to live in Toronto, and you never got a clear sky anywhere you drive. If you drive for 3 hours, it was still kind of washed out. So the marsh has this because it's a migratory area. We have lots of elements in place to limit the amount of light that will basically interfere with migration. So that also helps to have a beautiful, nice, clear night. And the topic on this month will actually be about the migration. How birds use the stars to navigate. So that's something that people don't realize as well, but the stars are quite important for bird navigation. They don't have compasses, they don't have GPS, right? So they have to rely on things. A lot of birds prefer to fly at night because it's cooler, no predation. So they have to come up with different systems, and we'll talk about what they use to navigate. And this is something we do every month, once a month. The third Thursday of every month, we have a different topic about astronomy, and we invite people to come to the rooftop and look at those big telescopes and look at planets and stars and moons, and it's quite amazing.
I just learned something new. I just assumed they would fly all day and then sort of take a break at night. But it's something. Which birds in particular might fly at night? You know, or
well, most of the smaller birds, waterfowl, lots of the songbirds, because the bird of prey, the hawks and the eagles and so on, they rely on the thermals to soar and to fly during the day because it's a big bird. They require lots of energy, so they use those thermals, the warm air rising, to sort of glide their way south. So if those birds are hunting during the day, the smaller birds, well, they know better than to fly during the day because it'll be an easy prey. So they'll fly at night when there's no hawks, no owl, no eagles, and basically it'll be safer that way.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's exciting. And there's also another event coming up October 21st, and there's sort of perfect for our station. It's a farewell concert featuring some classical music. Want to tell us about that one?
It's one of my favorite events of the year. I like classical music, and I like wine, and I like cheese. So we combine all three of them. We have 4 members of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra or the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra coming to play music for us. Basically, as they play music, we highlight the seasons of the marsh. So we have a sort of a background images that show that depicts the birds that were there, the events that took place, and the wildlife, and so on. And then we have an intermission, half-hour intermission, featuring 10 different wines and cheese, and tons of great prizes as well from different sponsors. Just about every hotel in town is giving us a night stay. All the different venues, the ballet, the theater, the symphony, giving us tickets as well. So it's a fundraising as well for Oak Hammock Marsh, and it's a way for people to find out what the marsh is all about. I mean, if you come there during the late evening or late afternoon, early evening, you'll get to see all the birds come back from the fields as well. So it's an all-in experience that's really well. It's one of my favorite.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
I'm talking to Jacques Bourgeois from Oak Hammock Marsh. Now, just before we wrap up, when all the birds have flown away or most of the birds have flown away for the fall and for the winter, what happens out there at Oak Hammock Marsh?
Well, we stay open year round.
Yeah.
And what we do is we have different sets of birds that will come to the marsh. For example, snowy owls. They migrate south, but south is here for them. So lots of Arctic birds will actually come and spend the winter here with us. So it's kind of an ever-changing scenery at the marsh. Like it's never the same birds. We don't have all the same things all the time. So it's a good way to come in and enjoy the different seasons. Come to the marsh and check out the wildlife that comes throughout the season.
And as you say, it's just a short drive from the city. What, 20 minutes or something?
It's about half an hour north of Winnipeg, right between Stonewall and Selkirk.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So you can go to oakhammockmarsh.ca for more information about their events and about the park itself. And it's been a pleasure to have you here for sure.
Pleasure was mine.
I'm going to make my way out there.
Sounds good.
And go and check it out. You were asking me when last time I had been there. I said, I think it's been a little while. And I was trying to remember the last time I'd been out to Oak Hammock Marsh. And I think it probably since I moved back to Winnipeg 2001. So it was definitely before that. And I'm going to get out there.
A lot of people come when they have kids, or they come as a kid. They catch bugs in the marsh. They love to do that. But then as they grow older, they think, it's for kids, right? But it's actually, we're trying to engage different audiences as well. So that's why this concert is a perfect way to target a different audience, and people can come and discover it again.
Yeah, it's a good way to escape the city.
Exactly.
Not too far, and get involved with nature and interactive. And
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Jacques Bourgeois from Oak Hammock Marsh. Again, go to oakhammockmarsh.ca for more information about them. And then also to find out about the events. A couple events coming up. October 18th is all about astronomy and migration. Didn't know the birds flew at night. There you go. You'll learn a lot more, I'm sure. And also there's the migration farewell concert October 21st from 7:30 to 9:30, featuring Mary Lawton, Boyd McKenzie, Suzanne McKegney, and Carolyn Nagelberg. Nice string quartet there for you.